Hey guys, welcome to the Martial and Healing Arts channel. I'm Rafe Kelly, founder of Evolve Move Play. I'm extremely excited to be sponsoring this channel. Martial and healing arts have been key aspects of embodiment and self-cultivation for thousands of years. I have some of my best friends in the industry, Rory Miller, Matt Thornton, Edward Hines presenting here, and I'm really excited to share what they have to say with you guys. You're gonna love it. So Evolve Move Play is an ecology of practices of movement, mindfulness, nature connection, and community. And within the movement, we have a big emphasis on moving in nature and being able to do parkour. We also like to lift weights and throw things around, but there's a huge aspect of martial arts, and I've been training martial arts since I was 6 years old. So it's really exciting to be able to sponsor this channel in particular. If you're interested in my work, check out my talks on the main stage in the Movement Anatomy channel. If you can't get to either of those live, you can check us out at Rafe Kelly on Instagram, get all your awesome embodiment giveaways, and for now, just enjoy this amazing channel. It's gonna be an awesome show.
Rafe Kelly there, our sponsor for the channel. And now we've got Michael Kern about to come up and talk to us about finding your neutral, accessing embodied presence for health and healing. If you want questions for Michael, do use the Q&A box and we'll try and get to those at the end of the presentation. Or if you have any comments, just use the chat. But questions for Michael will be particularly in the Q&A box, so I can keep an eye on them for later on. So Michael is a biodynamic craniosacral therapist and naturopath with a practice in London. He graduated from the College of Osteopaths in 1987 and has been teaching craniosacral therapy for 33 years. He's been a senior tutor at several prestigious institutions, and his visionary book, Wisdom in the Body, the Craniosacral Approach to Essential Health, has been translated into 10 languages. So we're very lucky to have him here today. Without further ado, I present Michael Kern.
Great. Thank you, Liz. Am I appearing on the screen? Okay? Is this okay?
I can certainly see you okay.
That's fantastic. That's great. So I'm going to do a little bit of talking. I'm going to show you some pictures, which I'm also going to talk about. Then we're going to have a little break for an exercise. Then there'll be a little bit more talking and then another exercise. And hopefully at the end, we'll have some time for question and answers. So I'm just going to share my screen right now. And hopefully you see something on your screen.
Yes, yes, we do.
That's great. So first of all, I just want to say it's such a pleasure to be part of this extraordinary event. This is now the penultimate day. I've been tuning into many of the presentations over the last week, and it's just been incredibly inspiring. I really want to thank Mark Walsh, Tom Burden, also Liz, who is our host today, and Fabian, who is our tech guy today, just for the tremendous work that you're doing. I really appreciate that for this conference to be running as seamlessly as it is, there is a massive amount of work that has to be going on in the background. So just really, really want to express my thanks, my appreciation to you, and also my appreciation for being here to be able to present to you, to talk with you. I'm going to be talking about finding your neutral. A lot of the perspectives that I'm going to be sharing with you today come from the field of biodynamic craniosacral therapy. This is what I've been practicing and teaching for many years. We have a school in London that runs training courses, as well as advanced courses and introductory classes. And we also offer these trainings in a number of countries around the world, including places like Russia and Poland and China and various other places too. Biodynamic craniosacral therapy, in a nutshell, is a light touch therapy that works with subtle rhythmic movements that get expressed within the body. The principle is that as long as those movements are able to express without restriction, without impediment, we are essentially in a state of good health. But if we start to hold patterns of stress, hold patterns of contraction, of inertia within the body, it can affect the expression of these rhythmic movements in the body. And this, according to our experience, is the primary precursor to the development of disease and pathology. As long as these subtle movements, as long as the internal movements of the body are able to express freely, we're in a state of health. But it's when we start to lock up that the life-giving forces that could express through us become restricted and impeded, and this will lead us to the development of symptoms and pathologies. Now, that's the short explanation, but it's as far as I really want to go with that today. The practice was developed by an osteopath called Dr. William Sutherland, who around the turn of the last century, about 120 odd years ago, had a perception when examining a set of cranial bones. He had a perception that these bones are designed for movement. And he started to realize how important these movements are for our state of health and well-being. And for some time, Dr. Sutherland lived in the city of Detroit. And a lot of the imagery and a lot of the languaging that he used to describe his findings came from the car industry. And the term the neutral, which is what we're going to be discussing today, also comes from the car industry. It's a term that was coined by Dr. Sutherland. And it's really describes a state of embodied presence and availability. If our car is in first gear, there's only one way that it can go, and that's forwards. If our car is in the reverse gear, there's only one way that it can go, and that's in reverse. It's not fully available for movement. But if the car is in neutral, it's available for whatever forces are acting upon it. It will move wherever it needs to move, according to whatever forces are being acted upon it. So the neutral is really a state of availability. It's a state of openness. And in biodynamic craniosacral therapy, we see this as really an entry point or a starting point to any kind of deeper therapeutic process. This state of availability kind of needs to be there as a prerequisite before deeper shifts and deeper changes can take place. And this is really working on, I would say, two main principles. One is that health is not just the absence of disease, it is an active imperative, which given half the chance will express itself, given the right conditions. And the second principle is, how can we create these right conditions? How can we generate a state of availability for our health to express? So I want to first start just a little bit with some considerations of what is health? What is this active principle that we're talking about? Well, the first thing is that it's always there. There's never a time that it's not there. This constant seeking of health, of well-being, of wholeness is something that never ever disappears. It doesn't matter how sick we are. It doesn't matter how depressed we are. It doesn't matter how chronically ill, how exhausted we are. This impulse to find the best possible balance is always present. Another aspect of this is that there is a profound wisdom in the body that knows exactly how to heal. that there is a deep intelligence. Dr. Sutherland called it an intelligence with a capital I, that is far beyond our own human intelligence, that knows exactly how to heal. So not only is it an active principle and an indestructible principle, it's also something that is profoundly intelligent. One of the pioneers of the practice that I do was a cranial osteopath called Dr. Roland Becker. He referred to this impulse as the bioenergy of wellness. And he described the bioenergy of wellness as the most powerful force in the universe. He didn't really mix his words. Not that it just works nicely on a good day if we're in the right mood. The most powerful force in the universe. This is something that just never goes. And when this is able to express, our self-healing capacities, I would say, can become limitless when we truly can connect to these forces, that this deep intelligent forces that can express through us. We may heal from conditions that are so-called incurable. We, sometimes see people who heal from cancer, from AIDS, from conditions where people have been written off and told, I'm sorry, there's nothing more we can do. But something happens, something can change sometimes that allows for this profound healing, this profound intelligence to express. And this is what we're going to be exploring a little bit more in the next, whatever, half an hour, 35 minutes. This is a quote from the founder of osteopathy, Dr. Still. He back around 120 years ago, he wrote that the brain is God's drugstore, having within all drugs, lubricating oils, opiates, acids, and every quality of drug that the wisdom of God thought necessary for human happiness and health. Now, Dr. Still wrote this before a lot of neurotransmitters and hormones were discovered, but he directly perceived that within us there is everything that we need for health and healing. And the question is really, how can we liberate this? How can we create the conditions to allow these substances to flow through us, to express, and for health to be restored? This impulse to find health, to find balance, is something that begins right at the very, very start of life. There's never a time that it's not there. We see it in our embryological development, which is organized with such extraordinary precision and such extraordinary balance. The embryo, in many ways, represents for us this sense of openness and availability for whatever forces wish to act upon it. And as such, the embryo's development unfolds according to such extraordinary and precise patterning. And within the field of biodynamics, it's thought that it's the same forces, it's the same impulses that organized our embryological development. These are the same forces that maintain us and heal us throughout our lives. So when we really tap in to deeper therapeutic forces, we are actually tapping in to the forces of creation, to those self-same forces that formed us in the first place, that are constantly reforming us. The body is in a constant state of regeneration. It's in a constant state of repair and maintenance. And these are the same impulses that formed us in the first place that actually carry on throughout our lives. So embryology is not something that just happened to us however old we are, whatever it is, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. Embryology is something that's constantly happening. We're constantly being recreated, reformed. And perhaps in this little piece of understanding, we might be able to appreciate why it could become possible for us to heal from even the most difficult, chronic, distressing conditions, because those forces of regeneration actually never leave us. They never disappear. These forces that create us are the same forces that we see everywhere within the natural world within which we're part of. These are the same forces that created the universe, that create all the patterns in nature that we're part of. So in no way are we separate from the natural world around us. And the more that we're able to synchronize to the natural world and to these universal forces, the greater the potential that we can start to access for health and healing. This is a quote from Walter Russell, a great philosopher. He said, "We are all electric creatures floating in the electric sea of this electric universe." Dr. Sutherland, the founder of cranial osteopathy, described he called it the ocean all around us. And if we're able to synchronize to this sense of the health and the ocean that is all around us, then we can begin to tap in to some of our therapeutic potential. The physicist David Bohm also wrote very eloquently about this principle of the space around us containing life, containing energy. He said, space is not empty, it's full. Space is not a vacuum. It's a cosmic sea of energy, which we're part of, in which we live, and also from which we receive the impulses of life and the impulses of healing. So part of what enables us to heal is dependent on our ability to synchronize to these wider forces, not just what's going on kind of inside ourselves, but outside ourselves. Many years ago, when I first started in therapeutic practice, my kind of mantra was, well, healing happens from within. Health is always health is an inside job. And of course, there's truth to that. We know that. We can make shifts, we can make subtle changes, and then, conditions can start to respond. But I think I've really changed my perspective of this over the years, and now start to see healing not just as an inside job, but as something that is very much connected to how we as individuals connect and resonate to the world around us and to this fields and various fields of function in which we live. So it's not just something that's inside, it's also something that's outside that we can bring inside given the right conditions. Nikola Tesla, the great physicist, described this. He said, "There is no energy and matter other than that received from the environment." This is, in a sense, what I've just been trying to say in my own words. So how do we do this? Well, one of the principles involves a deep listening. The name of my book is called Wisdom in the Body. We listen to the wisdom that is present within our bodies, the wisdom that can express. And what I'd like to do now at this point actually is a little bit of a tuning in exercise. I don't want this just to be a theoretical discourse. I'd like us to be able to do a little practice. So I think this could be a good time for an initial practice. So wherever we are, I'm going to just encourage you to just to kind of feel a little bit into your feet on the floor, maybe to just get a sense of how you're sitting on your chair or your sofa or your cushion or the floor. And take a few minutes to listen to the sensations that are present in your body. Now, if you are finding it in any way difficult to connect to sensations, do a little bit of a body scan. Maybe start at your feet. Just notice, okay, as my feet touch the ground or touch whatever it is they're on, what are the sensations right now in my feet? How is this for me? And you don't have to interpret it. You don't have to understand it even. But just notice the sensations. Maybe there are sensations of pleasure, maybe there are sensations of pain or difficulty, or maybe there are just neutral sensations. And then just kind of come through your body. I'm going to take you through this a little bit quicker than I would normally do if we were meeting together in a classroom. But I want to just be able to get us to touch into how we might listen. Let's bring your attention maybe to the sensation that's present in your legs and in your pelvis. Without any judgment, without any censorship, without any feeling, this should be there, that shouldn't be there. How is that for you right now? What do you notice? Can you just be with that? Can you observe that without judgment, without needing to make it better, without trying to understand it, but just being present with those sensations? What do you notice in your lower back? What do you notice in your belly as you sit and listen from wherever you are? How is that for you? Again, don't try and figure it out. Don't try to say, oh, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Just acknowledge it. Just notice it. Allow whatever sensations your body wants to express. And if you are having any difficulty with this, because maybe some of the sensations that you experience are just too difficult or too painful, too hard to stay with, just take this very, very slowly. Take a little time just to check what may help you, what may support you to feel okay right now. Is there something that you could connect with that provides you with a sense of okayness or a sense of support or a sense of orientation? And just stay with that. Don't try to force anything. If anything is feeling difficult or strained, just take a little time for self-care, for resourcing, for being with something that feels okay. Bring your attention to the upper part of your body, maybe to your chest. Maybe you can follow your breath for a few cycles. Just notice how that is. Notice yourself breathing in, breathing out, without trying to change anything, without trying to fix anything, without trying to modify your breath in any way. Just let your breath be as it is. If it's feeling fast, if it's feeling slow, if it's feeling strained, if it's feeling labored, if it's feeling whatever it is, just allow your breath just to be exactly as it is, and see if you can just notice, how is it for me right now? How are the sensations right now as I breathe in? And as I breathe out, what do I notice in my body without any judgment, without any censorship? How is this for me? We don't need to change anything. We don't need to fix anything. We just need to listen and respect whatever it is the body is wanting to do in its own wisdom. Notice your shoulders and your arms. Notice your head and your face. Just allowing the sensations of whatever is present. So as we just listen to the body, as we allow the body to do whatever it is it needs to do in its own wisdom, we may find, not always, we may find that some kind of settling can happen. It's a little bit like if we have a muddy glass of water and we want to drink the water. We're never going to get clean drinking water by shaking the glass. But just allow the glass to be as it is. Just let it stand as it is. The mud will start to settle towards the bottom. And then we may have something to drink. So as we listen to our bodies with this, I would say, unconditional acceptance, without an agenda, which is what the neutral is, what do we begin to notice? What is it speaking to us? What is it saying to us? And as we can just be with that, do we begin to notice some kind of settling and some kind of slowing down? I'm going to just be quiet for half a minute or less, just to allow us each to rest with whatever it is the body is wanting to do. Just allowing the body to speak to us. Letting it do. If you need to move with it, it's fine. You don't have to hold yourself tight or stiff. But if you feel the stiffness, be with the stiffness. If you feel the pain, be with the pain. Whatever it is, whatever is the experience, as far as you can, are you able to just be with it? So this sense of allowing, this sense of giving space, this sense of listening and trusting the wisdom in the body and following it is really the starting point. It's not the end point, but it's the starting point of how we can access our neutral and how we can begin to access a deeper therapeutic process. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Then we're going to do another exercise a little bit later on. So I can see a few faces. Perhaps at this point, I can just open up and see if there are any questions or anything that you would like to share. And maybe Liz, if there are any questions, perhaps you can just read them out. I'm going to create a little bit of time at the end also for sharing and feedback, but let's see if there's anything that feels that's coming up right now that somebody wants to share.
If there are any specific questions, do use the Q&A box you can find on the bottom of your screen there. That's where I'll be able to locate your questions.
I'll give that just a few more seconds, but I'm going to prepare you anyway. There can be questions at the end as well. There doesn't have to be anything right now. All right. So let's just create a little bit of space at the end. So why, if health is such a universal principle, if it is such an indestructible force, if it carries such a profound intelligence, why the hell don't we heal? Why do we get sick? According to Dr. Still, the founder of osteopathy, he said, sickness is an effect caused by the stoppage of some supply of fluid or quality of life. Dr. Still saw the fluids of the body as being the carriers of vital forces within the body. These health-giving forces, we call it in craniosacral work, these potencies are carried within the fluids. So if something becomes held or restricted, then these health-giving forces in some way become impeded. So how do we work with this? Well, of course, there's in this conference, I think, how many hundreds of methodologies have been flagged, how many beautiful insights have been shared. I would say that there is a common denominator behind all of these insights, and that is that healing happens in relationship. In craniosacral practice, we work with light touch. We form a relationship through touch. But whether the relationship is formed through touch or through some other means, it doesn't matter. Maybe we find a relationship to something in ourselves, something that was unresolved, something that we couldn't somehow integrate. We find a relationship to it and we can begin to heal. Maybe our healing happens in relationship to a teacher or to a therapist. Maybe our healing happens in relationship to the natural world around us, to the environment, to these universal forces that I touched on earlier. But it's all about relationship, whether it be internal relationship or external relationship. So how do we access the neutral that will allow these deeper therapeutic processes to happen? Well, does that look like you right now? Liz is putting her thumb up. Do we lose ourselves in Zoom land, in our computers, in our telephones, in our relationships? Do we lose our sense of centering and orientation? Are we too far forward? Are we too much in? Are we too concerned? Are we too invested in everything that happens? Or are we disconnected? Are we out of relationship? Have we lost that sense of connection? Because the neutral is not just about not being too invested. It's not about just being too close, too needy, too having an agenda for something to happen. It's also about not being disconnected, not being uncaring, not being out of relationship. It's really about how can we stay present with whatever is happening unconditionally, not disconnecting, not getting too close, not getting overly involved, overly caring. Not having selective attention. You know, when we go into whether it be therapy rooms or life situations, just think about how much of the time we go in with a fixed idea of what we think should or should not happen. That we have a particular kind of quality of attention that seems fixated on something. And what are we going to be missing when we do that? When we have an agenda? When our focus becomes too narrow? What are we going to be missing? What else is possible if we only focus on the problem? What else might be possible? So the neutral is something that is very easy to say. It's very easy to talk about, but actually it's something very difficult to practice, because it really calls upon us to let go of our opinions and to let go of our agendas in order to allow a deeper intelligence to manifest within us. This was very beautifully articulated by one of the pioneering cranial osteopaths, a student of Dr. Sutherland, whose name was Dr. Becker. And he described how he noticed within his therapeutic practice, whenever a client came into his room, there were always three things that were going on. He said, first of all, there's the thoughts, the opinions, the ideas that the client has about his or her own condition. Then the second thing is, there's the thoughts, the opinions, the ideas, the expertise that the practitioner has about the client's condition. And the third thing that's going on is what is actually happening in the living process, in the living physiology of this client. And he said, these three things do not necessarily coincide. But in this practice, what we want to orient to, what we want to listen to, is what is happening in the living physiology, not in our thoughts and our ideas and our agendas. So in many ways, this involves us starting to get comfortable with something that many of us find incredibly difficult, and that is not knowing, not being an expert, having no idea actually of what needs to go on, of what needs to take place, which is actually the truth, I would say, within any kind of therapeutic encounter. We may think we know, but actually we have no idea of what really needs to happen. So can we start to get comfortable with that? Can we start to get used to that, to be easy with that? This was also, I was listening to a talk from Charles Eisenstein, and this is something that he expressed earlier this week at the Embodiment Conference. He said, the space between stories is where knowledge, new knowledge can come in, and that release is where new growth can happen. It's within the spaces. It's not just about carrying on in the same mode. This is not where we're going to find the healing. It's about finding those spaces, finding that sense of surrender to whatever wants to happen without condition, without agenda, without the need for anything to happen. This was also very beautifully expressed by the great Indian teacher, Krishnamurti. He was giving a teaching many years ago, and a packed hall of thousands of people were there to come to listen to him give his discourse. And he would give these talks every year, and people would be following him, trying to get some kind of clue and understanding of how they could progress on the path of spiritual or self-development. And on one of these talks, he leaned forward and he said, "Do you want to know what my secret is?" Of course, there's the hush in the audience as they all wait in anticipation for this big secret. And he just paused and he said, "Well, I don't mind what happens." This is another beautiful articulation of what the neutral is. And like I said earlier, I really appreciate something easy to say, not so easy to practice. How can we let go? How can we truly surrender to whatever it is that wants to happen? Leonard Cohen expressed this principle so beautifully in one of his songs. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. It's also what Stephen Porges describes as immobilization without fear. The great psychotherapist Winnicott described something that can take place within the therapeutic encounter as a holding field. The practitioner can create a holding field for the client. Within that holding field, there is this space to allow whatever it is that needs to happen. And there is a sense of safety. There is a sense of holding that is present. And Stephen Porges describes when we truly feel safe, whether it be in whatever situation we're in, whether it be lying on the beach or walking through a forest or in a therapeutic relationship or with our partner or with our friend, we can start to settle. He describes this as immobilization without fear. A great deal has been spoken in the last week or so at this conference about immobilization, about the freezing response, which is a state of overwhelm when we're faced with life threat. But there is another kind of immobilization as well that Porges describes as immobilization without fear. And this is where oxytocin kicks into our system and overrides these defensive, freezing responses. So what I'd like to do, I think I've got about 5 or 10 more minutes. I want to do another exercise with you, which I think might just pick up some of the things that I've spoken about. Hopefully then we'll have a few minutes at the end just for any kind of closing comments or questions, and we'll take it from there. So this is going to be another sitting exercise. So again, I want you to just get yourself comfortable. Maybe you can bring your attention back into your body, just as we did half an hour ago or 20 minutes ago. Again, noticing the sensations that are present, allowing those sensations, noticing whatever feels current for you, whatever feels that's running for you. It might be easy, it might be difficult, it might just be okay. You may be exhausted, you may be excited, you may notice, anyway, such a wide range of sensations and experience. Just see if you can notice and acknowledge whatever's true, whatever's present, whatever's real for you as you start to listen. So initially our attention is going to be very much oriented inside the body. What's happening in my body right now? How is this for me? How are the sensations? Just take a minute or two to simply acknowledge and be present as best you can. Don't worry if you can't be present, if it's too difficult. Just acknowledge that. That's your reality. Just acknowledge whatever is present. And now I'd like you to bring your attention maybe to your head, to your brain. Maybe notice there might be some strains or tensions in your head. Maybe you've been concentrating, working too hard, dealing with stressful situations, managing some of the challenges of life. How would it be if you can just allow your brain to just relax, to be as it is for a few minutes? So not straining, not trying, not needing to manage anything, not needing to make anything happen, not needing to feel anything, but just letting it be as it is. And as you allow things to just be as they are, you may find that your attention can just naturally begin to widen. So instead of becoming just locked up in your own body, maybe you can start to also take in a sense of the space around you. Maybe a little sense of the space immediately around your body. Maybe a sense of the room that you're in. maybe even a sense of what's out beyond the room into the natural world. So we've got what's going on in our bodies, nothing being denied, nothing being managed, just allowing it, but also an appreciation of the space around us. Here we are sitting wherever we're sitting, but there's also the world around us, wherever we are, whether it be in a city, whether it be in the nature. Just start to take in a sense of your surroundings, the room you're in, and what's beyond the room. And we're going to see just for a few minutes if we can begin to form a relationship between what is inside and what is outside. So as we bring our attention to the room or to what's beyond the room, I want you to just for a few minutes to listen. What does the room want to say to me right now? What can I take from the room? Or if I'm looking out the window at a tree or a plant or a sky, what could I receive? What could I take in from the space around me? Is there anything I could take in that could be useful? What would it want to look like? We don't know. Just be open to it. What might be possible? Just allowing. This is really a sense of allowing and a sense of surrendering as best we can to wherever we are, to whatever place we're in, and receiving whatever is around us, taking it in. And also, what is it we'd like to bring to our environment? What is it we'd like to speak to the room? What is it we'd like to speak to the natural world around us? What is it we'd like to share? So can we allow some kind of, we could call it communion or dialogue or interchange between us and the natural world around us? Can we receive? Can we take in? Can we find some little opening, some sense of something that we might be able to receive? Can we bring? Can we share? Can we let go? Can we express whatever we want to let go of? Whatever it is we need to release, whatever it is we need to say, whatever it is we want to share. And just for really another minute, because we're almost out of time now, but I just want us to sit quietly and just to allow this sense of dynamic interchange, acknowledging what's present in our bodies and being open to whatever it is we can receive from the environment and from the natural world around us, and whatever we can share, and just allowing this sense of dynamic interchange to take place and noticing how that is for us. So, a little taste, just a little taste. Few ideas, a little practice. What is the neutral? How may we find ways to connect to it? How may we use some of these principles in our practices, whatever they are, whether it be a hands-on practice like mine, or any other kind of practice. So, let's now take a few minutes for questions, for feedback, for reflections.
Yes, thank you so much, Michael. A really, really interesting and engaging presentation, and lots for us to take away. We really don't have much time at all. We are going to have to wrap things up here, I'm afraid. But I think, much like many of the participants, I'd like this to continue for a long time.
Right.
A long time. I'll just take the first. I'll take one question from the very, very top, because we really only have time for one, and that's been upvoted. So, struggling with impatience about when we settle into these activities of finding our presence. Do you have any tips for dealing with the impatience and allowing ourselves to drop into that?
Yes, I do. Sometimes it's a question of really just being with the impatience, deeply acknowledging the impatience. I think the more we get impatient with the impatience, the more we're going to tie ourselves up. So just kind of acknowledge, oh God, here's my impatience. So can you be with that? Can you be with it as a sensation? Can you be with it as an experience? And what you may find is that step by step, it can begin to process. It's not going to process just by trying to shift your behavior or trying to kind of think yourself out of it. So I would say the way out is to go in.
Nice, nicely put. The way out is to go in. It's beautiful. Really, really interesting. This ability that we have to heal ourselves in relationship to the environment and ourselves. It's fascinating. I'd love to dig into it more, but we really are out of time. So the people who have got questions that haven't been answered, perhaps they'd be able to reach you at your website at cranio.co.uk.
Yep, that's right.
Or even dig into your book, which is Wisdom in the Body, which might have the answers that they seek.
And it might even raise some more questions.
It might even do that. Really, really interesting. Thank you so much, Michael.
I'd like to, just for a moment, Liz, I'm sorry, I know we're over time, but I just want to share screen just for a moment, just to show, yeah, so this is the book. And also just to let you see, this is our website, cranio.co.uk. We offer training courses in biodynamic craniosacral therapy. We actually have an introductory weekend coming up in about 2 or 3 weeks, which we're going to be running in London together with COVID protocols. And we have a new practitioner training starting in December. But you can get all of the information on our website. So I just wanted to give that little plug, and I can stop sharing now.
Oh, that's okay. You can leave it up if you want. People get a chance to write that down. That's fine. That's fine with me. So we are coming up to the end. It is now 5 o'clock here in the UK, the end of this session. But if you do want to keep the conversation going, we do have the coffee break rooms. If you go back into the main portal, you'll find some Zoom rooms where you can have a coffee break, chat with some of the other attendees. And of course, join the wider community of our Facebook group, which is the Embodiment Conference on Facebook, which has now got many thousands of people all interested in coming home to the body. So well worth checking out the Embodiment Conference, and even the martial and healing arts group as well on Facebook, which is a little more specific to this kind of work. Thanks again to our sponsor, which was Rafe Kelly, and thanks again to Michael, who was our speaker today, Michael Kern. This presentation, like all the presentations, will be free and available to rewatch for the next 48 hours. So if you want to get more to grips with this and pull the learning out deeper, you can watch that, or indeed any of the other presentations that are happening at the same time. They're all available for 48 hours. There is a whole library now of nearly 1,000 talks that have happened over this conference. So if you would like a little more time to digest those, and I certainly would, then you may want to upgrade to the library, which gives you lifetime access and notes on each session and audio files so you can process them while you're on a walk or out in nature as well. And it's very, very helpful to us if you are able to upgrade, because it means that we can afford to then put this conference out for free for everyone. So that's how the money gets used. So thank you for everyone who is able to do that. And if you decide you would like to upgrade, then I would suggest doing it over this weekend, because the price will go up, doubling after the conference ends. So that's us here at the Martial and Healing Arts channel. Coming up at 8 o'clock, we've got Jamie Zimron, and she's going to be talking about bringing somatics to mainstream society. So maybe check that out if you're wondering how to do such things. But for us here, we have almost come to the close. We're going to hand back to you, Michael, for one last sentence. What is your top tip to be more embodied?
Slowing down. I think I'm going to leave it there because I know we're out of time.
Slowing down.
Slowing down.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone who's joined us, particularly thanks to Michael Kern. And we've had Fabienne on tech. I'm Liz, and we'll see you later on. Have a lovely rest of your day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Big thank you to all.